Albany County Commission regular meeting agenda for February 21st of 2023. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And Commissioner Jones.
Present.
Commissioner Rivera.
Here.
Commissioner Gosar also here. If you would stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 on our public hearing for amendments to the Albany County zoning resolution pertaining to the aquifer protection overlay zone. Just a few housekeeping announcements before we get underway. Kind of a show of hands with anybody who was planning on putting comments in for this part of the public hearing. Okay, how about online? I guess my only thought is if you were waiting for another agenda item, it'll be at least 45 minutes before you can get to our regular agenda. So you're more than happy to hang out with us and listen to the public hearing, or we'll see you back at 6:45 for the regular agenda. So just wanted to give you a little time to eat dinner if you're not interested in the public hearing. So here we go. Did write a few comments about the public hearing just so that thoughts could be understood. Would you clearly state your name when you give your comments? That would be super for the record. Testimony will be limited to 3 minutes per person, but no ceding of time. So if you have something to say, please say it. Well, keep the time as best I can. When I raise my hand, you'll have 30 seconds remaining. Please summarize your thoughts. When you have reached 3 minutes, I'll call time. Please address your comments to me as the chairperson of the Albany County Commission. There will not be any replies from the commissioners during the public hearing, and all questions posed in your comments will be considered rhetorical. 5, if you have submitted written comments, please don't read them. Your written comments have been entered into the record. However, you are welcome to make new comments or clarify your submitted written comments. 6, should you agree with the statements of a previous commenter, please don't restate their comments. You are certainly welcome to say I agree with the comment from the person's name or the subject matter. Restatements are just that we'll make sure that your name and your thoughts are entered into the record. Please make your comments about information contained within the proposed aquifer protection overlay zone amendments. And if you have comments for something else on the agenda, there will be a public comment section after the public hearing. And then please engage in civil discourse and refrain from shouted outbursts of any kind. Many people would rather be based a firing squad than to make public comments. But I hope everybody feels welcome. Everyone's perspective on the proposed APOS amendments is useful in crafting sound public policy, and we appreciate the time you've taken previously and tonight. So thank you. And whoever would like to start, be more than welcome to. We'll go in person first. How about that? Let's go in person here. Anybody who wants to make your comments, please. Awesome.
Greetings, commissioners. My name is Klaus Albany, and I would like to first off thank you for your service to Albany County and our community. I have sat in various forums and Zoom meetings with all 3 of you, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you again about the Casper Aquifer. Having said that, I'm sure none of you who know me are surprised that I am here to show support for the updated aquifer plan and encourage your support for such plan. I am very well aware that this is another contentious issue in our county. I could talk about the reports I've read from the last 40 years of scientific studies done by the county and city. I am not going to do that. Instead, I want to tell you about my experience as a candidate going door to door and talking to my friends and neighbors in Albany County. As a candidate for public office, you have, if you choose, the opportunity to engage your neighbors in conversation about their concerns, hopes, and fears. In other words, what matters to them. It was for me a tremendously rewarding experience, and I discussed many things with them. I knocked on many Republican and Democratic doors, and one issue had almost universal support, and that was aquifer protection and clean drinking water. No other issue even came close. So I stand in front of you tonight and ask that you support this aquifer protection overlay zone, not because I ask you to, but the overwhelming majority of county residents I talked to told me they wanted the Albany County Commission to protect their and their kids' drinking water now and for the future. Thank you for listening to me and them, your current and future constituents.
Thank you. Next, I think, Meredith, I think that's how your hand go up, and then anybody else? Next, wants to be next. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Marian Erdelli, and I'm one of several speakers from the Albany County Clean Water Advocates. We have provided you with written comments, and several speakers will summarize those comments tonight. Aqua supports the regulations you are considering today, and we will continue to do so. We respectfully request that you adopt these regulations as proposed to you by the Albany County Planning and Zoning Commission in January of this year. The water sampling documented in the 2009-2010 studies conducted by the city of Laramie shows that pollution results from septic effluent. For example, the water sampling documented in the 2009-2010 studies conducted by the city of Laramie shows that pollution from septic effluent already exists in the developed areas of the Aquifer Protection Overlay Zone, the APOZ. These results are consistent with the 2019 Wink Associates study of an individual system. The 2021 Wink Associates study applied these conditions to different build-out scenarios within the APOZ and supports the proposed requirement for large minimum lot size. Sampling from one of our community's few monitoring wells, that is a well constructed to specifications as a monitoring well, has shown nitrate concentrations as high as 9.3 milligrams per liter in the East Grand area. The public drinking water standard is 10 milligrams per liter. It is true that the 2009-2010 water sampling program was a snapshot. However, it is much more comprehensive study than the one presented to you by Dr. Starkey in written comments for this hearing. The city of Laramie's program sampled 110 wells, with 50 of those wells showing nitrate concentrations higher than the acknowledged background level of 2 milligrams per liter. 3 wells exceeded the public drinking water standard of 10 milligrams per liter. 62 wells were resampled in the spring of 2010, with 29 showing nitrate concentration of over 2 milligrams per liter. While Dr. Starkey's program extends over a decade, he presented results from only 17 wells.
Marion, sign.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up. Please. Here, and then we'll go.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Paul Taylor, and I'm going to speak on behalf of the Albany County Clean Water Advocates. Aqua believes that septic systems have their place in rural areas We also know that septic system effluent is one of the major contributors to groundwater pollution across the United States. Although Laramie is a special place, it's not so special that septic systems operate differently here than elsewhere. Septic systems pollute. More septic systems result in more pollution. The question then becomes how to manage this reality. That's why these regulations are so important. A case in point occurred in 2021 when local officials made a specific request to the WDEQ for a cumulative analysis of the nitrate impacts of two subdivisions, one down gradient of the other, proposed in a rocky and fractured area of the APOS. After considerable public pressure, including public record requests from Aqua, the WDEQ was forced to reveal that its cumulative analysis projected nitrate levels in the groundwater, leaving the down gradient subdivision at 9.98 milligrams per litre, just a hair below the public drinking water standard of 10 milligrams per litre, as Marion said. While private well owners can drink whatever they want, it is not realistic to insist that septic effluent does not contaminate the aquifer, or that there is no cumulative effect from introducing additional sources of contamination. We also should keep in mind that there are many substances for which there are no drinking water standards, so-called PPCPs, pharmaceuticals, and personal care products, also found in the septic system effluent. As noted in the CAP, development also brings road runoff, the use of outdoor chemicals such as fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides, and the probability of inappropriate disposal of all kinds of household and automotive chemicals. Nitrates are used as a marker because they are durable and cheap to sample for, but they are by no means the only potential concern for human and animal health. These regulations are really important. Thank you for your work.
Sylvia, please. And then there's a gentleman back there in the corner.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Sylvia Bagdonis, and I'm speaking also for the Albany County Clean Water Advocates. So, could you? Is that better? Yeah. Some opponents of the proposed regulations have raised the issue of takings. However, retaining agricultural zoning and requiring large lot sizes to reduce development pressure on the aquifer and thereby safeguard a public water supply is not a taking. In this instance, such action may even enhance property values. In a recent and as yet unsuccessful proposal for a subdivision within the portion of the APOZ administered by the city of Laramie, a developer mentioned the desirability of properties east of Laramie because of the proximity to the Pilot Hill open space itself as an effort to protect the aquifer. The current County Casper Aquifer Protection Plan points to large lot zoning as an appropriate management tool to reduce pollution from septic systems, as well as road runoff, pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers within the aquifer protection area. If you are a current or prospective property owner within the APOZ, which would you rather have? A place where no one could build nearby and get in your view, or add traffic to your road, or install a septic system whose effluent could find its way to your water well? Or a place in an area open for subdividing, so you never know when more houses will be built near you, bring their traffic and noise, and where you have to purchase drinking water if you have babies in the house because your well water now has enough nitrate in it to cause blue baby syndrome, which, as we know, did happen in West Laramie historically. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Greg.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Greg Hunter. I live in Laramie. I just want to reiterate what Dr. Taylor said, is that it is a precursor chemical, for for the nitrate, and there are lots of chemicals that we have not regulated that people take and use and dispose of. Wyoming is the only state in the union that doesn't have primacy for its drinking water. That's a very interesting take in and of itself. And I have been working with septic system for a long, long time. And if you don't actually sample for certain things, your groundwater can be, really impacted. I've worked in areas where we have PFAS that are coming into our groundwater now. And at one time, we used to spray German POWs with Lindane. That Lindane went into the septic systems and then impacted the drinking water systems, but most people didn't really realize it because you don't have to sample for those things. So you do want to really be careful with these septic systems and make sure that we take this APOZ very, I'm on and for it, and I think we should continue with this particular regulation because it will save us a lot of money and potentially a lot of chemical heartache down the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Anybody else? Please.
No, no.
My name is John McCall, and I live on the aquifer. I wasn't going to speak tonight because it's pretty clear that the decisions have already been made. I've been to these meetings in the past. Despite any comments that have been made, I've never seen one single change to any resolution about this. So I know the writing on the wall. Regardless, I did not want my silence to be mistaken for agreement with these changes in the regulations. I want clean water as much as anybody. I live on the aquifer. I drink the aquifer. My septic system is on the aquifer protection zone as well as my well. And in fact, my well is slightly downstream from my septic system. I test it. We haven't had any trouble with it. I've heard some data tonight about these individual monitoring wells and things like that. What I haven't heard is anybody say that the Laramie wells have shown that they're over the, whatever it is, 10 milligrams per liter maximum at any point. The other thing is that there's lots of solutions to this problem, if there is one, none of which have been even approached because they all cost the city money and not the individual homeowners. And we'd rather pick on a bunch of individual homeowners that are small enough in number that they can't do anything, than actually have the city do other options. Other options include your other source of water is the Laramie River. Pretty sure the nitrate levels in the Laramie River are awfully high. So what do? You treat it. If you're that worried about it, there's no reason you can't treat your well water. That's exactly what I'm going to have to do if there ever is a problem. I know that and accept that responsibility. So the other possibility is the city of Laramie deliberately placed their wells in high flow areas. This is because it's cheaper. It's cheaper, but it's not safer. It's not safer from all these other things that may happen, but it's not safer from some chemical spill on I-80. You've all seen the train wreck in Ohio. There's no reason a chemical truck couldn't overturn on I-80 and spill a lot of nasty stuff into the aquifer. This doesn't protect against that. And so the main reason I'm against this is because it's a change. It's a change in regulations that were set long before I bought my property. If you can just change the rules of the game in the middle of the game, then there is no game. So I'm going to just leave it there because, again, like I said, I know what's going to happen. I know what's going on. We'll see what the courts decide. But you just can't keep changing the rules. This is a never-ending story. I've been dealing with this for almost 20 years now. Crazy.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. Yeah.
Thank you, Julie. I'm here.
You get your name, please.
Oh, Sally Palmer, 17 South 11. We own a cabin that on Highway 11, 719 Highway 11. And we've experienced what happens when urine leaks into our well downstream. So water does continue to flow downstream. So again, I'll be brief, but I noticed when I taught religion science that physics works. Water flows downstream. And no matter what we might say here, Terry, it's like water does continue to flow downstream. And so when I look at the aquifer, it's like this is the flow. And water flows into it. But unfortunately for us, water cannot flow out. Once pollution happens in our aquifer that's common to all of us, it does not flow out. Benzene and other chemicals like hospice used to dump into the toilet when people die, they don't flow out. They're still stuck down there in our aquifer. So I'll be brief, but I thank you for even knowing that this is important to us in this place that we call home. So if we look at the aquifer, it's about half of Laramie water. Even if people want to use the Laramie River, that's not enough. And I work with a group of people, several ones that are dealing with climate change in terms of the Berry Center and other organizations that say, you know, Wyoming is facing droughts and how do we deal with that? But one is to say the water that is right here, where we call home, makes a difference in their lives now and in the future. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Ann Jacobs, speaking for Albany County Clean Water Advocates. AQUA supports the city and county cooperative effort to update the Capital Aquifer Protection Plan, along with further educational and regulatory efforts to implement its recommendations. In particular, it is imperative that the city and county implement the long-standing recommendations for the installation of a properly constructed monitored well network to continually collect data on water quality and provide early warning of potential problems. It has been demonstrated time and again right here in Laramie with the septic systems formerly located in town, with the former Union Pacific tie plant, and with leaking underground storage tanks, that groundwater contamination is hazardous, expensive, and difficult to remediate. In part, this is because a problem sometimes is not apparent until it is a big problem. That may explain why participants in the debate over aquifer regulation often seem to be talking past one another, because some do not see a problem until pollution levels exceed a drinking water standard. By that time, there will be a substantial buildup of contaminants in the aquifer that cannot be made to disappear quickly or cheaply. No one has asserted that the APAUS is littered with the bodies of people who have died from drinking their well water. AQUA has asserted that we should rely on available science and our common sense to reduce the introduction of pollutants from both city and county sources into our unique and valuable drinking water asset. Abundant clean water is a scarce commodity in today's world, and it will be scarcer in generations to come. Good stewardship requires action, not just lip service. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Doherty, please.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Bob Starkey. I live in Sherman Hill Estate Subdivision, East Laramie. I'm a Wyoming licensed professional geologist. And as such, I'm obligated to be truthful. communication with the public. I have submitted 3 documents for the public record. They've already been mentioned tonight, so I assume that the commission has them. First, I'll discuss the conclusions from the CAP network groundwater sampling program. These are the same conclusions that I presented in 2016 to the Albany County Commission. They haven't changed with 10 years of consecutive sampling. First, there is no nitrate plume down gradient or otherwise. Water quality in the Casper Aquifer in the Laramie area is not degrading. This conclusion is corroborated by decades of data showing consistently low nitrate levels in City of Laramie municipal supply wells. There is not a nitrate problem in the Casper Aquifer in the Laramie area. The Southeast District Engineer for the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality, which is the regulatory agency responsible for water quality, concurs that Laramie does not have a nitrate problem. There are 2 well-documented hydrogeologic conditions that naturally protect the Casper Aquifer and prevent contaminants from migrating downward into the aquifer. These conditions are either ignored or dismissed in the 2019 and the 2020 WANC reports. These conditions are, first, the Casper Aquifer is hydraulically confined and as such is a pressurized aquifer. I have to digress for a moment and just say that to call the aquifer water table aquifer flies in the face of 118 years of scientific literature documenting confined nature of the Casper Aquifer. Second, the aquifer is overlain by a thick sequence of unsaturated material referred to as the Vadose zone. The lack of saturated conditions under the leach field is studied by WANC in their 2020 report and 2019 report is an important observation regarding contaminant transport. Water in the Vadose zone will not move laterally under our groundwater gradient unless saturated conditions are maintained. In other words, a plume will not form, septic systems cannot recharge the aquifer, and down gradient wells will not be impacted by septic discharge. The occurrence of elevated nitrate in some domestic wells is attributed to deficiencies in well construction. An inadequate annular seal can allow for introduction of nitrate into a well through the well annulus. In this case, the nitrate is localized to the well and nitrate input to the Casper Aquifer is negligible. The well owner can choose to replace his well and mitigate this situation.
May continue. You can wrap it up.
Okay, I only have 3 conclusions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is obvious that the WANC reports were designed to support a political outcome. These pseudoscientific reports are not defensible, do not honor scientific methods, and should not be used in planning guidance documents. The proposed amendments to the APOZ regulations are overly restrictive, unnecessarily burdensome, and attempt to solve a problem that does not exist. Therefore, these amendments are legally indefensible and should not be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starkey. Yeah, please, Kimberly. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Kimberly Starkey. And I live in Sherman Hill Estates. I have a BA in geology from the University of California at Santa Barbara and a master's of science in geology from the University of Wyoming. And before I present my comments, I'd like to correct you. Bob is Dr. Sir, not Mr.
Oh, excuse me. Dr. Starkey, my apologies.
Okay, I submitted a letter this afternoon accompanied by 5 documents referenced in the letter. The main topics of my letter are: 1, extensive water quality data readily available to you, clearly indicating no degradation to the groundwater quality of Casper Aquifer in terms of nitrate concentrations. 2, septic systems being the main source of nitrate with speculation, as no conclusive evidence has been presented. 3, other potential sources of nitrate
which have largely been ignored, particularly those related to biological nitrate fixation. 4, the Casper Aquifer is confined in the area where the septic systems are located. Hence, a potentiometric surface has been recognized across the Casper Aquifer for many years. By definition, the potentiometric surface represents the level to which water will rise in a tightly cased well after the confining layer is breached. If the head varies significantly with depth in the aquifer, then there may be more than one potentiometric surface. In contrast, a water table is a particular surface for an unconfined aquifer. Recognizing the difference between a potentiometric surface and a water table surface is hydrology 101. Any person who holds himself out to be a hydrologist and conflates the two terms is aiming to deceive. 5. The prescriptive nature of the proposed amendments to the APOZ regulations is antithetical to the regulatory environment envisioned in the CAP. 6. Finally, examples of falsehoods that have been spread throughout our community for many years, creating a divisive environment are in the letter. I hope you will read my letter and the reference documents. I respectfully request that you take the time to read through the voluminous public comments you have received, as well as the many reports to gain a full understanding of the issues at hand. In the end, it should be clear to you that these proposed amendments are not reasonable nor necessary.
Thank you, Ms. Starkey. Yes, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Sarah Gorin. I'm batting cleanup for Albany County Clean Water Advocates. Besides being a member of AQUA, I'm married to Vern Hinckley, who's the current chair of the Albany County Planning and Zoning Commission, and myself served on P&Z many years ago when the regulations you are now proposing to amend were worked on. We spent a great deal of time studying the geology of the Casper Aquifer at that time. And one among many other things that we learned was that 5 Wyoming registered professional geologists, along with 1 Wyoming registered professional engineer, and 1 individual with both Wyoming professional geologists and professional engineer certifications, signed and stamped the quote technical review subcommittee of the Environmental Advisory Committee end quote report that laid out the geology for the first CAP. This initial interpretation has been refined with additional data, but not contradicted in numerous published reports over the past 2 decades by other Wyoming registered professional geologists. I bring this up only because Dr. Starkey has offered a contrarian version of our view of the Casper Aquifer geology. And I thank him for submitting his longitudinal study. It's very useful, and it's interesting to note that both in the case of the longitudinal study, which was included many fewer wells than the city's very broad snapshot study, in both cases, half the samples showed nitrate concentrations above background. And I think that's an interesting result. But again, getting back to the contrarian views of aquifer geology, more explanation and supporting data are needed. If the aquifer is pressurized and contaminants cannot make their way down against that pressure, how did the rain and snow get in? If recharge occurs through drainages, why are there not repelling layers below the drainages? If septic systems do not discharge into the aquifer, where do they discharge? And what explains the higher concentrations of nitrates in developed areas? While it's always important to keep an open mind and acknowledge the possibility of error, for the purpose of these proposed regulations, we urge you to move forward on the basis of substantiated science. Very much appreciate your time and your service. Thank you. Well, I'm going to do the same thing you did in Stillwater.
Yes, please.
Good evening. I apologize that this is unscripted. I just felt that necessary to come at least speak. My name is Shiloh Mathil. I'm the landowner in the off Pope Spring. So we weren't in the aquifer protection zone, but the new proposed zone would encompass the 80 acres or now 70 acres that I own. So initially, when I purchased that 6 years ago, I worked with Mr. Gertz, did a small subdivision, sold a couple of the lots, bought them back because I didn't want neighbors, and then realized sometimes neighbors are good when you live out of town and it snows, 12 inches, and you need some help. But I've invested a lot into the land. I've developed the land. I'm a Wyoming native. I'm committed to clean water and the land, just like everybody here. But is what's concerning to me is the lack of leadership I saw through this whole ordeal. Shame on me, I wasn't super informed, but I didn't see any leaders of our community. I didn't see Miss Ibera and Mr. Gozar come say, hey, Shiloh, I know you own this land. What do you got going here? We want to take that away from maybe what you want to do. So you can't do that. That never happened. See, I've spent a lot of time and money building roads, talking to other friends that might want to do stuff. And now I may not be able to do that. And as what I'm seeing here is a lot of people that care about a cause, clean water. I care about clean water. We all want clean water. But I'm not seeing a lot of leadership. I'm not seeing a lot of people wanting to work with fellow Wyomingites and get a solution. I haven't seen that happen. I see this side and this side, but I think there's better ways to do this. I think that there needs to be leadership that says, hey, what do we really need to do here? What makes this your 35 acres or that 40 acres? You might want to do this, but why can't you do that now? Nobody came to me and said, hey, can I test your water here and test it here? And let's go over to the Kalani's and test that. That never happened. We might need to do that. I have a friend that lives up in Sherman Hills. He did have some high nitrates. And oh, by the way, there's 6 horses on a 1 acre lot next to him. It's like, we got to use some good sound judgment here and work together, not just and care about the people. I'm not seeing that. I know we care about the cause. We all do. But I just think we need stronger leadership, and there's a better way. And when you vote on this, just please consider the people that might have invested a lot of their savings and stuff into land that they want to do something with, because you're taking that away from those people. Thank you.
And just for the record, there is no boundary adjustment at all in these APAWS amendments. So there are anything will have changed from 2011 to presently being considered. There are no changes to the APAWS boundaries. Just to be, set the record straight. Any other? Yes, please, Nancy.
Good evening, Chairman and County Commissioners. I'm Nancy Sindelar. I live in town. I'm a water protector. The Wyoming Constitution says the waters of the state belong to all the people. The water was here 10,000 years ago when people, that's the farthest back we know people were here and they were drinking clean water. But the water belonging to all the people means that we all have rights to clean water. We all have equal rights to clean water, which I think supersedes some people having rights that could destroy the clean water for the rest of us. Will the people 10,000 years from now look back and say, well, 10,000 years ago they had clean water and they kept it clean? So please pass this amendment to the APOZ. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. How about online? Is anybody online? Would you like to make a comment? Raise your hand or unmute. Okay, last call in person and online. Seeing commissioners, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
That's all moved.
Been moved. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing that, all in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, once again, heartened by the community I live in. You have, civil discourse in a very, emotional topic. I do appreciate that. That's kind of rare anymore, it seems. So, item 4, comments from the public. Would anybody like to make a comment, on the rest of the agenda? Sure, please.
I would just like, you to know that I met with,
Maybe if you could go to the lectern, Commissioner Jones, that'd be.
I have to just, I think they can hear me once I.
Okay.
I met with the Wyoming Intertie Grid United Project. And they wanted to bring me up to speed on the project and let the commissioners know that they have now begun speaking with landowners. And this project connects different electrical lines to one another.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anybody else? Public comment? Hearing and seeing that, I entertain a motion to close public comment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing that, all in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Disclosures, Commissioner Rivera. Any disclosure? Commissioner Jones?
I do. On item 18.
Okay, and then would you just be abstaining from the discussion and the vote?
That's
on item
correct.
18? Okay, I'll make sure. And I have no disclosures on the agenda. 6, considerations of changes on the agenda. Any changes to the agenda? And 7, commissioners, I entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda at your question.
I move that we approve the consent agenda. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing that, all in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. That moves us on to item 8. Consent for discussion and approval, change order request number 1 from Shepherd Construction Inc. for the addition of backlighting for exterior window alcoves. Jake, good evening and thank you.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is for the Commissioner's room and it's for the backlighting in the alcoves. We had the contractor prepare 3 different options. And if we want to backlight the alcoves, I suggest we accept the number 2, option number 2, which is the cheapest. And it's still $2,195, but considerably cheaper than the other out of the 3 options, it's the most economical. And I guess that's up to the commissioners to decide whether that backlighting is necessary and it's worth $2,195. And that is the only change order request for number 1. And that was an item that we requested. It was not associated with the original bid item or the original room remodel.
Commissioners, any questions for Jake? We'll go one by one, please.
This is exterior, right? The outside of
This is on the inside. So where the lights or where the window wells are, there's the little boxes that kind of go up into the ceiling. Where the architect recommended that we provide lighting on sort of the back of that, projecting towards the wall to make it feel a little bit bigger. So those alcoves weren't dark and dreary when we get the whole room completed.
If those are lighted, it makes it easier to see inside the commissioner's room, particularly at night.
I don't exactly know the answer to that. I know that the lights are going to be lit on the lower recesses of the alcove, and they're gonna be projecting into the window, not into the room. We will have other lights in the room that'll be lit, and the room will be adequately
I'm not
lighted.
worried about how adequately lit the room is. It's how much people can see in when there's a commissioner meeting going on.
That's a good question and a good point, and I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you.
Chairman Gosar,
Yes, please.
if I can answer that question for you, I can tell you that if you walk down the ramp at night and the lights are on in the commissioner's room, you can see everything in that room.
That's right.
And I don't believe that we have any options for blacking out those windows or anything like that. Our option is to close the blinds that are in there.
And they will be on a switch, so they could be shut off if it is an issue, a security issue. They will be able to just be turned on.
Okay, thank you. And would you like to, a motion change order by change order, and what would be easiest for you?
There's 3 change orders, so.
There's 3 individual change orders.
Okay.
You kind of changed that on the other.
I did. I split them up because this first change order, and Jake can correct me if I'm wrong, but the statement in there was, it was at your consideration whether you wanted to do it or not. The other 2 have a recommendation from Jake to do them. So that's like, I split out number 1 as separate from 2 and 3. But however you want to proceed, that makes it easiest.
And Jake, maybe you could indulge me with who came up with the idea of putting lights in the alcove? Was that just something that
The architect recommended it to backlight it so that the lights, or so that those sort of recesses wouldn't be so dark and dreary and make the room kind of feel confined. But the lights that they spec were almost $9,000. Adam looked at it and he said, there's got to be a better option. And he looked up a few options and he came up with one that was a little under $2,200. And so if we want to backlight those lights, I would recommend doing it the cheapest way possible.
Okay.
Jake, but this is just aesthetics. It's not contributing to the light in the room itself, or vision. It's just so those alcoves don't look dark.
That, I believe that's correct, yes. Because we will have overhead lights that will be projecting into the commissioner's room so that there will be adequate light. Yes.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions? No. I entertain a motion for item E to this. Okay, I guess that's our answer. There's no motion, so that rascal died.
Very well, thank you.
And then item 9, present for discussion and approval change order request number 2 and number 3 from Shepherd Construction Inc. The additional wall and floor receptacles and the removal and replacement of the double entry doors.
Yes, alternate number 2 is for wall mounted receptacles for electric to be able to mount monitors on the walls and have power in close proximity to those monitors so that we don't have cords running over the floor from existing outlets and existing floor outlets and stuff like that. So everything is clean and confined and it doesn't present a tripping hazard or anything else. It's just nice and clean. And so I do recommend having that so that we can have all of that stuff nice, clean, everything is set and everything is where it's supposed to be when we put the monitors in.
Okay.
And yeah. And then number 3 is to replace the main doors on the entryway into the room. They've been kind of a security issue. They haven't been able to be locked, and we didn't replace them when we were doing the security updates with the badge entry because the contractor at the time that was doing the updates to the locks didn't have the capability to do the doors. And they gave us a price, and I think it was in the $10,000 to $12,000 range. And now that we have a contractor on board that can do it, they're going to charge us $6,700. So it's a better deal, I guess you would say, now than it was 2 years ago when we were doing the update. So, and we need the doors to be secure. I would recommend that one.
Commissioners, any questions about items 2 and 3 change orders? If not, I'd entertain a motion for either or both of them. Yeah, please.
Chairman, if I may, we also had an alternate number 4 that was provided by the architect. It was just to put tile on the east wall behind the dais. That's totally aesthetic and it was going to be $5,600, and I don't recommend that. I don't, unless somebody has a dire desire to have tile behind them. I just wanted to put that on the record and make note of it.
Okay.
Cool.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the change order request number 2 and number 3 for septic construction for the addition of a wall and floor receptacles and removal and replacement of double entry doors. However, not number 4. I second number 2 and number 3.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Jake. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Present for approval for the amendment to construction contract between Board of Commissioners, the County of Albany, Wyoming, and Shepherd Construction Inc. for the Board of County Commissioners meeting group model to extend the term of the agreement to April 30th, 2023, and extend the dates of substantial completion to no later than March 17th, 2023, and extend the dates of final completion to no later than April 20th, 2023.
That's pretty straightforward. I think I can explain why we're behind schedule. Part of it is lead times due to the casework being produced and ordered and supplied. Another part is due to we didn't have any good as-bills for the building or the room as far as electrical went, so I had to go through a FOIA request with the city to get as-bills. That took 3 to 4 weeks, and then the design drawings were contingent upon those as-bills, and everything just kind of slipped quite quickly. And then we had to get a building permit because the existing electrical wasn't at capacity or was at capacity and didn't have any extra capacity to serve what we needed to. So that's kind of why we're looking at a contract amendment for a contract extension.
Commissioners, any questions for Jay? If not, I'll entertain a motion for items.
I move that we approve item 10 as presented. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing that all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it. Item 11. Present for approval of utility license for the Last Mile Transmission LLC on County Road 6 and Marshall Road. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mr. Chairman, this is a utility license from Last Mile Transmission LLC to connect power to transfer power from the wind towers that are going to be built on the Boswell Springs project on Fetterman Road. So this transmission line will be crossing Marshall Road in one spot to get back to transfer the energy down the lines.
Commissioners, any questions? None. I approve item or I entertain a motion for item 11, please.
I move that we approve item 11 as presented. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 12, present approval. Giving utility license for Wheaton Rural Electric Association on County Road 71, Harris Park Road.
Mr. Chairman, this is another utility license to cross the Cottonwood Harris Park Road. It's close to the county line, but it will be crossing an Albany County road for residents.
Commissioner, any questions about? I entertain a motion for 12, please.
I move that we approve item 12 as presented. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And 13, present for approval road use agreement by and among the Board of Commissioners of Albany County, Wyoming, Albany County Road and Bridge, and Last Mile Transmission LLC for Albany County roads utilized for the last mile transmission line project of the Boswell Springs Wind Project. Rob.
Mr. Chairman, this is a road use agreement, again with the last mile transmission line project. And it's basically they'll be using approximately 19 miles of the Fetterman Road and approximately 17 miles of the Marshall Road to do their construction of the power line. So basically, this is a road use agreement for that project.
Rob, Commissioner, any questions for 13? I entertain a motion for 13, please.
I move that we accept and approve item 13 as presented.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
I'd like to thank Jennifer for all her help on these.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jennifer. Item 14, take from the table, accept the petition to vacate portions of First Street and Maple Avenue in the plat of Centennial, Wyoming, as submitted and amended by Valley Ends LLC. Require Valley Ends LLC to have a licensed surveyor prepare a geographical survey, including legal description of the property to be vacated and the 40-foot right of way to be granted to the public to provide said survey and legal descriptions to the county. Set the deadline for objections to the proposed vacation and claims for damages by reason thereof not be less than 30 days after the board's acceptance of the petition, and direct the clerk to publish the public notice of the deadline for objections and send a notice by registry mail to all persons owning or claiming an interest in lands over or across the proposed area to be vacated. Jennifer, thank you.
You're welcome, Commissioner. So we had tabled when it initially came up on your agenda, this petition to vacate upon request of the commissioners for Mr. Coffey, who was here representing Ms. Gustafson, to see about changing the 40-foot right of way, which was in the initial petition, to be an 80-foot right of way. And item 15 on your agenda is the new agenda item that reflects that 80-foot right of way, which Ms. Gustafson has agreed to. The new map is on page 161 in your packet as you're looking through. So this would be our request to take the item from the table.
Mr. Chair, I move that we take from the table item 14 as presented. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 15, accept the petition to vacate portions of First Street and Maple Avenue in the plat of Centennial, Wyoming, as submitted and amended by Valley Ends LLC. Require Valley Ends LLC to have a licensed surveyor prepare a geographical survey, including legal description of the property to be vacated and the 80-foot right of way to be granted to the public, and provide said survey and legal descriptions to the county. Set the deadline for objections to the proposed vacation and claims for damages by reason thereof not be less than 30 days after the board's acceptance of the petition, and direct the clerk to publish public notice of the deadlines for objections and send a notice by registered mail to all persons owning or claiming an interest in lands over or across the proposed area to be vacated.
I apologize for my ridiculously wordy agenda item, but there are a lot of steps that have to be taken. So I figured it was easier to put them all in one, so we don't miss any. So as we mentioned, this is the same vacation petition that came before you before, with the change that Ms. Gustafson did agree to the 80-foot right of way that was requested by this commission. And that new map is in there. And I believe Ms. Gustafson is here. If there are any questions, or if you have any questions for me.
Just want to make sure that you get lost in those words like I do. Essentially, what we're doing is vacating an 80-foot easement and replacing it with an 80-foot easement to the west. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Essentially, yes.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Of Jennifer or Mr. Coffey or Scott, if you have a question, they're all here. Okay, if there are no questions, I'd entertain a motion for item 15.
I move that we accept item 15 as presented. Do we need to move? Oh, with findings, facts, and conclusions of law. Thank you, Sue.
And direct the clerk to publish it, that what you think?
Yes. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. And Jennifer, just to make sure that I understand, the 30 days of that notice will go out, and people who have objections, is it claims of property? Is it claims of monetary objections, or is it both of those things?
It's both. If they have claims of objection or damages, then they file those with the clerk's office to come before you as a board.
Okay.
And then if there are monetary damage claims filed, then there's a whole other statutory process that we go through at the end of that 30 days.
Okay, thank you. And I think we've done a pretty good job of making sure there is no claims. Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. Hutchinson, for being amenable. And hopefully this will take care of that. One piece of Centennial and one piece at a time. Get that Centennial going. 16, present for approval, request for qualifications for architecture and engineering for remodel of the second floor of the existing building at 3811 Beach Street, Laramie, Wyoming, to direct the clerk to advertise. Jennifer.
So this is very similar to the RFQ that you saw at your last meeting, but this is for the existing second floor only. We're doing that as a separate project than the remodel of the first floor and potential extension of the building, because we would like to be able to move public health, WIC, and prevention specialists into that second floor. So this is the RFQ, so we can get started with that process as a separate process.
Thank you, Jennifer. Commissioner, any questions? I entertain a motion for 16.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. 17, present for approval. Application from the Department of Health and Human Services, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Grants to expand substance abuse treatment capacity in adult treatment drug courts and adult tribal healing to wellness courts in the amount of $1,682,496 to support the expansion of Albany County Court Supervised Treatment Program from September 30th, 2023 to September 29th, 2028. Bailey.
Good evening, commissioners. This is our second SAMHSA application for our drug court program. SAMHSA does run off of a 5-year program, so our current 5 years is just about over. We've applied for a second one. This does cover one of drug court's employees' salaries along with additional participation slots. And you see that Heather's on now, so I'll turn it over to her for everything.
Have a good evening. Floor is yours.
Hello, commissioners. Sorry, I have a little bit of a echo. We, in submission of this grant, have requested a increase in participant numbers. First 2 years at 23 participants up to 28 for the last 5th year. Couple of things to note. In the last quarter of the 2022 year, our referrals increased over 100% from where we were at the year before. And our participant numbers also increased. We're running at capacity and working on establishing a wait list for our adult program. And yes, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. A diversion program that keeps people with a substance addiction at the detention center. I find to be a useful strategy and to increase that and allow more people that opportunity is super exciting for me. Somebody who deals in the health space. Commissioners, any questions for Heather or Amy?
I have a question. I had meant to call you and ask you about it before. That figure, $1,682,496. Is that the sum of the 5 years? Because I
Correct.
came up with something else at smaller than this, so then I wanted to know if there was something in addition.
Well, I could have done my math wrong. It's been a long week.
And
Yeah.
I apologize, didn't bring those figures.
No, that's perfectly fine. The way SAMHSA does their budget is not ideal. They have us put in our entire budget for year one, and then what they do for years 2 through 5, it's kind of just the sum of all those. So I easily could have been wrong with my math. I can double check that real quick if you'd like me to. Yeah, the number that they're mainly focused on is that number for year one, and then we put in the reason for some of the increases. Like one of the increases we put in was basically like a cost of living increase for the personnel in that department. We know that we'll be losing another grant in years 4 and 5, or 3, 4, and 5. So we put in some additional travel for that. But things like that, and that's like in there, but I easily could have messed up and I apologize.
And all of them.
Well, I wish they would just all use Excel and it worked out perfectly because it does it for you, but nope, these lovely PDFs.
And what's your gut feeling? Is this, have we performed well with the first grant for the first years?
Yeah, there were a few hiccups. So we've had turnover in the director position. There now, I feel, is very, very stable. So we've learned a lot, definitely, in the past 5 years. So there was going into this application, there were things I knew we needed to do. And there were things I knew that we needed to change. And so we did. And I do feel confident. I've heard SAMHSA is a more likely organization to get a second granted more funding from after you've had the first one. I do know, however, that the state is applying for this grant themselves. Heather was told that a few weeks ago. So we can't be part of theirs because we're applying for our own. But if we get this, it's more money for us that we don't have to share with other counties across the state. And this would be the state's first year in applying for it, or this is our second year.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you. Appreciate it, Bailey. Commissioners, I entertain a motion for item 17, please.
I move that we approve item 17 as presented. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That motion carried. Item 18, present for.
Thank you so much. I know that this is a lot of work, and I know Heather's been working on it extensively as well. So thank you both for.
You're welcome.
Item 18, present for approval, application to the United States Department of Transportation for the fiscal year 2023 raise funding in the amount of $14,140,000 for the continuation of Skyline Drive route.
Thank you, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. This is an opportunity for the county to use some federal funds to connect East Skyline to West Skyline. That's on the south side of the interstate. When Bailey showed me this grant, there was 8 boxes to say per se that you have to check, and this is one of the projects that through the road and bridge and the community, I think we could check them all off without any reservation. And so anyway, I've been working hard the last month. Bailey, Brady, Jake, and Cindy and myself to get letters from stakeholders and stuff, and we've got quite a few letters of support from stakeholders and also first responders in the county and city. Are there any questions that
No, I'm just disappointed in the timeline. It's quite a ways down before it even starts being.
I think, and Bailey can maybe speak a little bit to the timeline. I think those are timelines that we can hopefully get done sooner than later. It's just the timeline that we can't go any later than that. So hopefully we can get this. If we have the opportunity and they accept our grant, get started on it and get it rolling fairly quickly.
Can I just add a couple quick things? In your agenda, it does say the total amount. I'd like to make that a not to exceed that amount. After talking with Jake, there are a few other things that we're gonna make a couple changes on that budget, so it'll be a not to exceed that. Like we said, with those timelines, it all depends on how quickly we can get permits. If we can get the permits quicker, we can sign the agreement actually whenever they have it ready. Just September 30th, 2027 is the latest that we can sign the agreement. After we sign the agreement, we can start using those funds, and everything has to be completed by September 30th, 2032. So it does have a big time frame, but when I brought this to Rob, we had talked that maybe this would have been a really good planning grant because we did have the option, but because we had to have right of ways, we didn't have that option anymore. We had to go straight to capital construction. So they know the Department of Transportation knows that some people, because of that right of way piece, goes straight to capital construction. We do have the opportunity to do permits and everything now, get our easement, and we just have to make sure it's in that schedule. I do apologize for not having the narrative or anything done. We have been waiting on quite a few third parties and we're finally getting them all together, and I'll be submitting the application on Monday. As long as you approve it.
Anything else?
No, I enjoyed reading those letters and supporting it from the stakeholders, and that's an impressive group of people you guys invited to those two guys.
Yeah, and I think it really does help with the flow of traffic in the school and hospital, and some of those places might be a little difficult to get themselves by 80.
Right, and as they project later on, maybe building more elementary school or junior high or middle school, I guess is closer to where the high school is, that's going to even increase that bus traffic even more. So I think it's a great opportunity to make a safer route for the south side to get to school. And if there's any issue with the overpass or the viaduct, is also that would also give them another way out of that region.
Thank you, Rob. Commissioner Barry, any other? Not an entertaining motion.
And with that, we approve item 18.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed? That motion carries. Item 19. Present for consideration amendment to the Albany County zoning resolution pertaining to the aquifer protection overlay zone. David, good evening.
Hi, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, it's good to be with you. Just as an aside, I guess I just am appreciative of all the public comment we received on this. I think it gives us a good perspective of what everybody's thoughts and opinions are and the worries and the good things are as well. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview. I'll just briefly summarize what the changes are in the aquifer protection overlay zone within these amendments. They will further define the purpose and the basis for the protection overlay zone regulations. They will amend certain definitions specific to the aquifer protection overlay zone regulations. They amend procedures for delineation and amendment of aquifer protection overlay zone boundary. Provide a minimum lot size of 35 acres and a density of 1 dwelling per 35 acres for future development in the area. Provide criteria for lessening on-site wastewater treatment system setbacks from vulnerable features. Amend requirements, standards, review, and exceptions for the site-specific investigation of the properties in this area. Provides procedures and requirements to modifying the existing aquifer protection overlay zone developments. amends provisions for on-site wastewater treatment system design standards and inspections. Amends standards for non-conforming uses within the aquifer protection overlay zone boundary, and amends language throughout the APOZ regulations for clarity. And so with that, the Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed this, and they provided a certified recommendation to this body for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have on this.
Thank you, David. Commissioners, any questions? David, about how long have we been at this? From seems like
Since I moved here,
yes.
14 years now.
Okay.
Well, which one are you talking about?
And these specifically.
So, yeah, so for a long time, it's been years. I mean, we adopted one version in 2001. Like October, November 2001 or 2021, excuse me, forgot a digit there. But that getting to that point, I think was a couple of years. And then with the appeal and then the findings that there was some procedural errors, we've now added another year to this project.
Thank you, David. Commissioners, any questions?
And David, we're talking about land, it's not water. As far as any specific use of sewage and water supplies, we're talking more about land use tonight.
Yeah, so I mean, the zoning, that's our police power as the county, right? The public health, safety, welfare. We're looking at ways to regulate land use to protect the aquifer. I mean, it has to do with protection of water, but the specific regulations have to do with the use of the land. Yeah.
Anything else? Commissioner Barrett? Commissioner Jones, any questions? All right, thanks, David. Any other ready? Does anybody else have to present? Okay. Well, before we get going too far down the field, I would like to thank the staff for years of work and multiple. David, I think you might be the only person who's been here from the time. I think we've gone through different attorneys, different assistant planners. And so I do appreciate that. It's in my mind, whether these are supported or not tonight, they certainly are much more regularly cited. This references to state statute. I think that's important. And I think for me, they're more logically laid out. So, commissioners, any thoughts or concerns?
I just have a few things I want to say. I want to thank everyone in comments here tonight for being so civil about it and respect. I did it in a respectful manner. Shouldn't go on points out. That's not always the case here. So I really want to acknowledge that it's nice to be able to work together to make things happen and not have it become hostile. So I thank you for that. I guess I just want to point out that I believe that taking serious measures now to protect our aquifer, potential business and possible future residents may be deterred from coming if we don't, and simply waiting till there are reports of ill health effects as a result of inadequate water protection regs, I believe is negligence and lazy on our part. The proposed amendments to the current regulations have been in the making, as you have heard, for so many years. And while the commission understands that no regulations are perfect, they are a solid document in which to continue the crucial work of protecting our aquifer. And because this is a working document, it will be subject to change as more information is acquired and situations merit, and will require continued attention and public participation. A lot of what I was going to speak about tonight, this comment on, has been mentioned already, so I don't feel like I need to harper on any of those things, everything from the legal standpoint to make these recommendations to the taking and all that. I will just surmise by saying I have looked at the reports and technical studies of the aquifer dating back to the mid-1990s, including water quality monitoring, nitrate loading, and exploratory drilling done since 2010. And the science is credible, and I believe it is my job to rely on. I've taken advice from P&Z, consulted Albany County Planning and legal departments, and have read and listened to all comments from the public. Here is my conclusion. Valid data exists and should be used. No public input provided has shown anything that merits substantive change to these proposed regulations over the 75-day process of P&Z and County Commission public review, nor over the year that has transpired since the adoption of the proposed amendments in November 2021. Based upon all the evidence before me, I feel there is rational basis to support the amendments to the Albany County zoning resolution pertaining to the APOD, and I will vote to approve them. I too have been very involved in this process for over 20 years. And these regulations hurt people. They take people's land, they take their savings, they take their wealth, they take away their retirement, education for kids and grandkids, and it also takes away elder care. This is not about water. This is a political action by the clean water advocates to take away people's wealth. And I will not vote for this.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. I guess for me, it's easy to get lost in the minutia. My job is not to figure out whose data is correct and whose data is not correct. I don't have that expertise, nor do I have that training. What I do know is the Cat Rock is an amazing resource. I know that everybody who has commented that I know wants that to always be an amazing resource. And whether a person has a septic system over it or is on city water, they want that water to be as clean as possible. And I share those ideas with them. Even though we have a lot of data, we have many studies. Casper Aquifer is an amazingly complex place, it seems. And I think that this document will be a living document, as it has been from its origination. Going forward, as science becomes more knowledgeable, as we get better ideas of how the world works on the aquifer, then these regulations become, it will certainly change. So nothing is really perfect. But I think there's really an interesting part that I didn't really understand as before joining the commission, and as I sit here now. My job is to basically be a risk assessor. I have to take in the input and wonder if the risk of doing nothing outweighs the risk of doing something. The Planning and Zoning Commission, if you look at the items, have listed quite a few studies, and thank goodness there's that amount of studies. I look forward to more. I'd like to thank Dr. Starkey for adding to that list of studies. Those are important. The more you know, the better decisions you make. However, for me, there's a baseline that I have seen occupied by most of the professional engineers. We have wells much of the baseline. So there's impact, and that's not surprising. We all impact each other in so many different ways. We just went through a pandemic where impact is something we learned about. So how do we risk assess the impact? Do we wait till half the wells are above the clean water standard? Do we wait till 25% of the wells are above the clean water standard? I've heard that some of the commission are carrying the city's water, so to speak, that this is the city overreach. However, I push back. If those wells get above 10 milligrams per liter, the private wells would be the most impacted. The city can treat. But what will happen to the land values of those with water wells above 10? You know what that will be. And it won't be, it'll be shocking to some. And so, using all of the data that I could assess, reading as much as I could, I have right up until 4 o'clock read through the emails that came to my inbox. I'm suspecting there are some that came after 4 o'clock. I don't know. But I think there's some time that I have seen enough, and I have not seen anything that changes my mind about it. I'm in the risk assessment business, and I think the risk of doing nothing outweighs the risk of doing something. And so what these APAWS amendments do not do is they do not change the western boundaries. They are as they exist today, as they have existed since 2011, I believe, is the last time the Albany County Commission moved this. And so I'm at a point where I appreciate the people who have cared enough to be here tonight, cared enough to write. When people care, you'll have a place that's protected, and that I'm certain of. And so with that, I'll just say thank you to all of you for conducting all the work that you've done at your expertise and the cost. I really do appreciate the conversation that is civil and decent in Albany County, and I wish we could extend it to other places in our country. So with that, that'll be my end of my comments. I entertain a motion for item 19.
I move that we approve the minutes to the Albany County zoning resolution pertaining to the aquifer protection agencies.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank you. I appreciate the conversation. Item 20, present for consideration of release of the financial assurances provided for required improvements for the 4 Mile Acre subdivision. David.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. So with our subdivision applications, if there's a road or other improvements going to be built as part of the subdivision, we require a financial assurance to make sure that that is done properly. The 4 Mile Acre subdivision, which is west of town, near the airport, they were required to provide a financial assurance for a road that they needed to build. Well, they built the road. It's been inspected by Jake Schneider, county engineer, and they're ready to have their financial assurance given back to them for completing the work. So, you have any questions about this project? I can pretty straightforward.
Thank you, David. Commissioners, any questions? I entertain a motion for 20 then.
I move that we approve item 20. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 21, approve payroll and vouchers for February 2023.
I move that we pay vouchers for and payroll and vouchers for February 2023. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Seeing no more business before the Albany County Commission on February 21st, 2023, I move to adjourn. Before we go, Kayla, is it correct that the rest of our meetings will be at the Road and Bridge Department until maybe in April?
March and April will be.
Got it. But yeah, until April. And that might include some budget hearings.
Yes.
That's how long it goes. So Road and Bridge, first Tuesday will be at 9:30 in the morning. Third Tuesday will be at 6 o'clock at night. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, and I hope you stay safe this week. Good night.
Yeah, they're on purpose.
So basically, limited open rate.
Yeah. Your people that you have, yeah, it's gonna make them ones.
Right.
They don't have enough to do. Like they're bringing the contact. Oh, no. Oh, they do it in so much. The reason. There's lots of. Right.
And I have suggested full cars.
I mean, we have all these understandings. We always keep that.